I want to show you something. Something you find online. I don't have a dog in this race. What I do try to do is get people to connect the dots. I get people to try to be skeptical about what's being shopped around on a large scale. Because typically speaking, anything that's well financed and well publicized is horse shit, to varying degrees, if not flat out. What I have typed up here is, anything in quotes is what the fella says. And you got a lot of people in the feed who have listened to the video and still believe what they want to believe. So I asked the question. Here, give me another second.
You don't identify as...
Before we listen to it, I asked if I heard him right. He said Jews fall into the category of Caucasoid. And the guy beneath this threw in some social engineering stickers because they're doing away with abstract thought, motherfuckers. And he said, no, he didn't. And then he said, WTF, whatever that means. I'm fucking with you guys. Because you should spell your words. Words have power. Now, what I've typed up, and before I leave this on here, because when I make sense, and I leave things that reflect reality in a feed, especially in TikTok because there's limited characters, sometimes if I knock out one of these statements, the account will block me. So you gotta do it fucking fast. And just the same, if you're blocked, then you're fucked. Whatever. I'm also trying to put on a pair of boots while I'm babbling at you because I'm trying to rush out the door, but I wanted to rattle this off. And I'm not doing a hot job putting on these boots. So let's just read these real quick. What the guy's going to go on to say towards the end of the video is the quote at the top. And as it reads, so, Jews, whether you Ashkenazi, Khazarian, or do it right? Yeah, whatever. Other terminology, you all fall genetically into the category of Caucasoid. So I also wanted to stress the video begins with him saying, we can prove white people, Caucasoid people. That's what the premise is, and this is what I mean. People aren't paying attention, thinking for themselves, reasoning things out. They want to believe what they want to believe, and I'm just saying this in reference to the video, what is said in the video, the context of the video, and what people don't appreciate. All you got to do is listen to the fucking video, and this is what he's saying. Not necessarily what I believe, not necessarily where the research leads, maybe, but just the same, it's what's stated in the video. Also appreciate, if I post this, it'll probably be flagged, but his video is alive and well on the internet. I might be wrong, but that's what I've been experiencing on TikTok. What else did I put in here? And this is what doesn't come up, and it should come up. And when you think of Noah's sons, you should also possibly think of fleets of people. I'm talking about different ships, like the Nina, the Nina, the Santa Maria, and I forgot the other one. I just call it Piñon sometimes because I forget the name of it. Either way. It says, of Noah's sons, Japheth, that would be the Caucasoid, settled in Europe. Ham settled Africa, and Shem settled Asia. 3 sons, not 4, whatchamacallits. Take it with a grain of salt, but you should familiarize yourself with that. Most people don't. Especially people who babble about the Bible, which cracks me up. They don't apply this to any of this jazz. As Genesis 9:18-19 states, and the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Just something to think about. Like I said, I need to probably get out the door, so maybe I'll post this in a bit. But here, let's listen to the video.
White. The term Jew is not... We can prove that white people, Caucasoid people, because even if you don't identify as white, the term Jew is not a genealogical description. You can't genealogically be a Jew. There's only 4 phenotypes. Dravidian, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, which is Asians and Koreans and all of them. And then there's Negroid, which is me and Africans. So Jews, whether you Ashkenazi, Khazarian, or whatever other terminology, y'all all fall genetically in the category of Caucasoid. We can prove that white people, Caucasoid people, because even if you don't identify as white, the term Jew is not a genealogical description. You can't genealogically be a Jew. There's only 4 phenotypes: Dravidian, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, which is Asians and Koreans and all of them, and then there's Negroid, which is me and Africans. So Jews, whether you Ashkenazi, Khazarian, or whatever other terminology, y'all all fall genetically in the category of Caucasoid. We can prove that white people, Caucasoid people, because
I don't need
even
to
if
hear
you
it
don't
again, but I wanted to play it at least twice so you guys could get a grip on it. And again, this is just one guy replying. Oh wait, maybe 2. Let's see. That's right, there. And then that guy does say it. At least he's paying attention. But a lot of people will fall into that other category and they're not paying attention is the problem. And sometimes we get things wrong. I'm rushing right now, so if I was listening to this, you never know. Maybe I might mix it up in my head. Think about that too. The point's to pay attention and blah, blah, blah. The point's to dig into things and try to figure out, does this hold water or is this horse shit? And most people would just repost it and or repeat it. And that's the fucking problem. It's difficult. There's so much I want to say. And yet it really comes down to what people are willing to analyze and interpret. What they're going to truly think about, internalize, and then, spit out in their own version of, based on what they, processed. And that's if they choose to do that. The thing is, and the trick is, not to allow what comes back out of you to be clouded by all the bullshit. And that's what usually happens. So on that note, we could think in terms of both the sexes. We could think in terms of superheroes. We could think in terms of dogs and cats. We could think in terms of, a binary system, because that's how it works. But more specifically, we could think in terms of strengths and weaknesses. And the same applies to the races. If you want to think in terms of races, or however you want to look at that. The point being is, we're all in this mess together. It's a symbiotic system. And on that note, this is where, if I'm not mistaken, we've been misled in a big fucking way. And anybody who watches, I thought about putting this at the beginning of the video, but I want people who are willing to think for themselves to stick with things, even if it challenges what they assume, what they believe, blah, blah, blah. Also remember, I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to. I'm painting dots in the air that you can connect, that lead to logical conclusions if you continue to connect other dots that you can dig up and apply to the dots I've painted in the air. Again, but it's all dependent on how you internalize it and what comes out of you in the end. And most people just want to apply their bias. So back to point. And most people don't know these things, and I only have so much time to spit this out. So this will probably be a YouTube video I'll allude to in TikTok and Instagram, and no one will be showing it in their feed on YouTube, and people on TikTok and Instagram won't go to YouTube because I didn't leave a link. This is the Zodiac, and this one, it specifically says Jewish views on astrology. It just looks like an older one, is my point. That's why I pulled this up, and I'll show you something else in a minute. But the Zodiac, I've said this many times. Some people call it the fixed stars. Remember, Zodiac crudely translates to little animals, as you see in here. Yeah. Yeah. But really, it's the guided stars. And if you think biblically speaking, this is Jacob. And Jacob was renamed Israel. This is what you see at night when you look up. This encompasses everything that we're aware of in the system that you and I are intrinsically a part of. We all fall under the umbrella of the guided stars, otherwise known as Jacob, otherwise known as Jacob the heel catcher, or Israel, if you will. So you could think of all of us, any creed and color you can dress up in your mind, falling under the umbrella of Israel and being the chosen people. Now, if you think of some bastards who think that their race is better than the other races. Again, strengths and weaknesses. But the point is to be humble and appreciate one another's differences, and together utilize the strengths and the weaknesses to our benefit. But that's not what's happening. And again, call me crazy, but these are dots I'm painting in the air. To draw another conclusion, or maybe not conclusion, another parallel, that's what I should say. This is why it's called Jacob's Ladder. And it's not circular, so most people don't understand. And if you've heard of the Tree of Life, you've probably never thought of it in terms of what you see at night, with Pisces and Aries connecting, so to speak, being joined. I joke around, it's like human centipede. I shit you not. But it's also how the energy flows. And when you see this, you should be thinking about your skeletal antenna. You should be thinking about your chakras. And this color coding in here kind of works. Kind of. Again, if I'm going to make a longer video out of this, I guess I could rattle it off. You got your red root chakra. And then sometimes I flip these in my head, but they are also joined. That's the tricky part. And the first three chakras at the base, at the ground, reflect society and materialistic horseshit. And that's where people get stuck. They don't make it to the heart chakra, which is what was put in the Fight Club programming in terms of the movie in particular. Most people don't get to that point because you're not supposed to, because that's how society is designed. So you got the red root chakra. Then I'm pretty sure you got the yellow willpower chakra. In other words, you don't call on your willpower. And then you got your orange relationships. And this is where you have your social media and all your bullshit, your family endeavors, blah, 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 blah. And really your peer pressure. And you don't get past that. Then you have your heart chakra, which is a point of centering yourself. That's the point. And then beyond that, this is where it gets even stranger in a way. Most of the time I'll just dress it up as the word and the blue throat chakra, so to speak. The word of God and things like that. But there's also indigo, which has been corrupted, and now people hear about indigo children and a bunch of other nonsense. And then that bleeds into purple, which is and there's other steps to this. Keep that in mind, and you can look them up. But purple having to do with, and the purple's the tricky part, purple having to do with royalty, because it's a blending of the throat and the root. Blue and red make purple, the royal color, which isn't green. So when you think of green and the heart chakra, remember the middle ground, in a big fucking way, is the purple. When you think of the two crude colors, the two polarizing colors, which is what people are manipulated by all the goddamn time. And again, do think of Jacob the heel catcher, otherwise known as Israel, ass to mouth, so to speak, or feet, in his mouth, like an Ouroboros. Crudely speaking. The Pisces and the ram. The fish and the ram. And if you're not thinking about these things, then you're not applying half the shit you probably need to reality to try to understand any of these things. Flowing through all of this, the energy flowing through this jazz, that's the ether. It's the living waters, it's prana, chi, vril, and you're told that it doesn't exist. Most people don't think in terms of it because most people don't think. It's a bigger thought. It's a far bigger thought. So back to strengths and weaknesses. If I'm not mistaken, a group of people thought that they were better than the other groups of people. And this is why they've been damaging the other groups of people genetically and otherwise, so that they would stand out as the chosen people, even though everybody who falls under the umbrella, if I'm not mistaken, of the Zodiac, all of us fit the bill. But it's dependent on choice, because this is a consent-based system. If you've noticed how our masters work, they present things and you buy into them, typically speaking, and people do, and it corrupts the people who buy into them. The example I use a lot of times, because Burger King is people, is fast food. Do you choose to eat fast food? A lot of people do, out of convenience. A lot of people do. And that means you chose your adventure and you altered yourself in a negative way instead of doing the right thing for whatever reason. And this applies across the board. But by doing so, you lessen yourself in comparison to these other assholes who are pulling our strings and manipulating us. So anything that's well-financed and well-publicized, you can't trust it. In my humble opinion, you can't trust it. But if you consider what I constantly rattle off, the numerous things I've left on the internet, you take notes and you think about it. I might sneeze, pardon me if I do. I lost my train of thought for a second. If you're considering the things that I say, blah, 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 on the internet, you're going to see how they connect and that we're being manipulated. Anybody with a brain in their head should recognize that, since things are bad and getting worse. But they don't usually. They don't. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I also thought I'd try to find a better image, but trying to find things in this slush pile, it's the topmost stuff is crap, usually. And or reworked propaganda in a number of ways. I want people to think about these things. I want people to think in general, but I want a lot of things, and it doesn't pan out. So I've tried goading people. I've tried a bunch of different techniques online, just trying to reach people. But ironically speaking, I don't have reach in terms of social engineering platforms, otherwise known as social media, because I talk about things that reflect reality, and you're not supposed to be privy to things like that. I'm still not barred from the internet, which is something that will happen down the line. Yeah. But in place of humans seeing what I leave on the internet, bots see what I leave on the internet. And there's nothing in writing to protect us or me from that. So people don't see things that matter. It's fucking crazy. It's really crazy, but that's how things work. And again, it's a consent-based system. Because we didn't do the right things early on. That's why that stands. And that's why it's getting worse. I'm just curious. Most people haven't thought in terms of this at all. And what I'm getting at is, again, Noah's sons and connecting some of the dots, using the system that we're a part of, using what you've probably heard about in terms of chakras, in terms of granola hippie slop that used to be called New Age, and now it's even worse than that. It sounds even more superficial. Now kids, I thought it was satire, but they actually call it woo-woo or woo. Like John Woo. Releasing the doves and making a bunch of horrible decisions in terms of directing. Like John Woo. Yeah. But I think they spell it with a, like Wu-Tang, but maybe I'm wrong. W-U. I might be wrong. There might be 2 O's in there. Like, ooh. Yeah. This one's a good one. In my humble opinion, again. If you've ever seen this, most people brush over it. You should take a screenshot and you should think about it. Because there's more in here in comparison to what you find elsewhere. And I fucking hate Pinterest. Any site, any one of these pages or applications, apps that you have to jump into, you shouldn't have to log into it. Because as soon as you log into it, they're tracking your shit. I mean, they're doing that anyway, but you're consenting to it. And to see these images, you have to log in if you want to download it or manipulate it or any of that other stuff. And it presents you with that crap because it's by design. Here, look closely. You see this one here? This is part of Seminar 3, but I'm not going to go into the details. That one is emphasized, to say the very least. And it's important. And you see the answer in here because the guy that knocked this one out, he was... you could think of him as a Freemason or somebody who was part of the boys' clubs. He left a lot of esoteric images, some of which are misdirection, but he left a lot of them in the public sphere. I think I have 3 or 4 of his books, or books that contain images he knocked out. And there's a lot in there if you go through it, but you have to dig up answers to reality to see these things, to have the eyes to see, which is why I've been giving people stepping stones, but most people don't take notes or think about it. Again, there are nothing but answers to reality. You and I are being manipulated. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a group of people who think that they're better than you and I, regardless of whatever color skin you have or whatever color skin I have, or our accents or anything else you could think of in terms of superficial materialistic horseshit. Things that don't matter. What matters is that you and I have a heart beating beneath our chest. What matters is whether or not you do stupid shit or you make thoughtful, conscious decisions. That you're not out there openly trying to harm others and subjugate them. That you're out there trying to benefit the realm by and large and be in tune with things. That's what matters. But instead, you have a bunch of people talking about skin color. By design, because we're being polarized, pulled between the blue and the red. By design. It's polarizing Hegelian dialectic, conquer and divide. It's the Doppler shift. It's what, in other words, when a motorcycle whips over the hill and you hear it go. It's no different from what you experience every single day and night. The day is more obvious, I think, for people because you can see it. And again, most people are superficial, so they need to see something. And I mean, you can see the moon at night, but it's emphasized, I think, more so in the day. You have twilight and you have sunset. And you can't have one without the other. But people are told to choose one of these like it's a fucking football game because bread and circuses, motherfucker. I promise you I'm making sense, but you would have to think about it to appreciate that and for it to make sense to you. In other words, do not buy into what I'm saying. Look into what I'm saying. Consider what I'm saying. Think about it. You've got gray matter between your ears and most people don't use it. Not for anything beneficial. And or they get swept away again by the biases, by the hearsay and the popular opinion and the programming, the propaganda, the manipulation, the agendas. And it corrupts. It alters how they see things, and they apply it to what comes out of their mouth, what bounces around between their ears, how they interact with others, what they choose to do. And again, you've probably heard people talk about it before, where you got kids in, say, preschool, and they're all creeds and colors, they're all hanging out. And I mean, some of them will be grumpy, some of them might not like each other, but by and large, kids will get together and get along. They'll fucking hang out because they're just enjoying life. They're exploring. It's fun. It's a tired fucking example, but it's all too true that all this other horse shit is learned, typically speaking. It's a learned behavior, and most people can't shrug it off because most people aren't using that free will. Again, the second chakra, if I'm not mistaken, the yellow one. They're not using it. Remember, from the ground to your crown. That's the red and the blue. And it applies to all things. It's a huge fucking deal. People aren't thinking in terms of it. Not in terms of all these other, oh, there's a spider trying to get me. Not in terms of, oh, that's a good one too. Hold on, I gotta crush his fucking guts out. Not in terms of all these other angles that I'm rattling off. And you need all of these other angles because if you're not using them, you're not going to paint a big picture. I'm waiting for this little bastard to Spider-Man to the ground so I can put a boot in his head. Here we go. Adios. Spiderlino. I forgot how to say spider in Spanish. Or Espanol if you prefer that. Because people are pretty particular about things. That's the other thing. My mom used to joke around, but she was also deadly serious about it. She would say, people will complain about a bright sunny day. And they do. And they do. I've also said this numerous times over. The universe will sing to you, but it will also create distractions in interesting moments. Right now I'm on book 188 in terms of the teeny little books where I've been knocking out the research on the go. And a great deal of it has to do with mapping time. That's how the epiphanies or the downloads or whatever you want to think of them as have shaken out. And it's because all routine is ritual, which touches on Seminar 5, having to do with black magic and all that other shit. Because all material shit or superficial slush or the crude matter is black magic. So through this process of numbering these books and doing what I've been doing, it's interesting how the numbers will sing to themselves in terms of what shakes out. What was my other point to that? I had something else. Oh, so you'll have distractions. When I've been picking up on these downloads or these epiphanies, in particular, some of the most crucial ones. One of them, I was about to go to bed. I was knocking out something, and it's by all rights fucking amazing. But I mean, I'm probably not going to show anybody because I haven't found anybody who wants to fucking do these things and is willing to, jump through all the hoops that I keep asking people to do to be able to appreciate them so they can work with it. But while this was happening, 3 people out of the blue popped up into the neighborhood. Apparently their vehicle's on the verge of running out of gas and they had been jacking cars. And so these 3 little fuckers were trying to pinch one of my neighbor's vehicles, and then they tried to pinch another one. And so I barked at them and eventually spooked them, and they fucking took off. But that's in between me trying to hash this out. So then I returned to what I was doing, knocked out what I was doing, and went to bed. The reason I say this is because I'm rattling off what I'm rattling off, and maybe it is or maybe it's not. Out of all the places in my house, a big-ass spider happens to lower itself right above me. Maybe it's drawn to the heat. Maybe there's another factor. Maybe it's, just a coincidence. Could be. Could be. But at the end of the day, the point to all of this shit is you decide. You choose the adventure. And whatever you choose is going to, by degrees, affect me and everyone else. This is why people have been trained to be narcissistic, self-involved little shits. This is why the nuclear family was attacked. This is why the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine have been war is openly waged on that. And anyone with a brain in their head would see it and appreciate it for what it fucking is. And it's because most people at the end of the day aren't choosing the adventure that benefits us. On that note, I'll shut the fuck up. If you sat through all of this, I really appreciate your time and energy. I mean that. And if I found people who are building this shit up and working this stuff out, and we were able to have a meeting of the minds, compare and contrast between one another what we're both working on, my tongue would be a hell of a lot less sharp, and I would be helping you. Flat out helping you and showing you what I have, because you're able to show me what you have and benefit one another. Not just one person who's, confusing research with entertainment and wants answers. And when they don't get them, they demand it, or they freak out, or they throw a fit. Someone who's capable of building this shit up and understanding it. I'm not always a bastard, is my point. But instead of blowing rainbows up your ass and doing what a lot of people do, that's why I take this approach, because there's a method to the madness. And you really got to be shaken out of your comfort zone, because most people are in a daydream within a daydream within a daydream within a daydream within a daydream. But what the fuck do I know? Thanks for hanging out.